Great stuff. Welcome back. Session 5, social purpose. And we're going to be looking at the global movement to balance business, purpose, and profit. We've had 4 sessions so far. I'm not going to run through them all. All I can tell you is first thing this morning, we had health and wellness for 2 hours. Cracking session. We're running about 2 minutes behind schedule, so forgive us. Panelists, as you're joining, you'll come in as attendees. We'll make you panelists. So what we're doing over 2 days, we're focusing on post-pandemic ideas, inspiration, and innovation. We're looking at things that are going to help change the way we work, live, love, and go to school, education. All those type of things that we need to be having conversations about now. And we're looking at great ideas that have happened over the last 12 months as well. So there's been brilliant people doing great stuff during the pandemic. Let's celebrate them and put some positivity out there. So, social purpose. I think we've all thought about what is our social purpose during the last 12 months, whether that's individually, as a company, or as a society. What do we want to achieve and do? And that's the whole point of this session for the next 2 hours. We're going to have bite-sized talks from Liz Gennara, who is the head of entrepreneurship at leading UK charity Crisis, and Davika Woods, leading UK entrepreneur and founder of I Am Arla. We're also going to have a industry leading panel discussing just that. What is your social purpose? And helping us all consider how we can shape it. Then we're going to have 2 more startups pitching at the end of this session to industry experts, and they'll all be part of the final at 3:40 to find out which is the Northern Irish startup that's won a 2K cash prize. So first up, let's connect in with Liz, who is from Crisis. Hopefully she's there waiting for us. Hello, Liz.
Hey, afternoon. Lovely to see you. How are you?
Lovely to see you, Liz. I am loving the color coding as well. Good work.
Thank you very much. On brand as expected. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. So I've got my cushions, and the only thing is I haven't got my co-presenter today, so it's just Ant, no deck today, unfortunately. So it's just me. I will cut away with my camera, and then it will be over to you straight away. And Liz, I'm correct in saying you're going to be talking about harnessing the power of entrepreneurship to end homelessness. What does it take? Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Rock and roll. Good. I am on point. So obviously, feel free, obviously, to start. My camera will drop away, and then I'll come back to you afterwards for a quick Q&A as well.
Thanks, Alistair. You might need to give me.
Thank you.
Share my screen. That's all.
Right. Let me see. There's some technical wizards behind the scenes that are just checking on that. Just sharing some presentation slides, guys. It's always the basic things, Liz, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But if you also, you're saying you're missing your deck to your aunt, I'm very happy to try and do some type of terrible jokes, which I'm very well known for with my colleagues. So
please do. Right, give us one politically correct joke that's not going to go down wrong on. I was going to say Good Morning TV, but we're not on that, so that's okay.
Okay, so I heard this on Comic Relief a few weeks ago, and it came from a child, just to say. So knock knock.
Who's there?
Europe.
Europe. Who?
I'm not a poo, thanks, Alistair. That's very rude to say to one of your
Very good. Very good, Liz. I know what you were saying about terrible jokes. You were true to your word.
Exactly. So happy to say it looks like I now have permission to share the
Yep.
screen, so I will get cracking.
Happy days. Yep. At the bottom, share screen. Yep, you got it. Happy days. Right. See you soon.
Brilliant, thank you. So hello everyone, good afternoon. It is an absolute joy to be joining you and sharing the work we're doing at Crisis to harness the power of entrepreneurship. So as you'll see, I'm joining you from London today and from our cafe from Crisis, which unfortunately had to close due to the pandemic, but will be reopening in a few weeks to customers. So we're really excited. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Crisis, about a bit of background to why we're using entrepreneurship to tackle homelessness, and some of the lessons I've learned in leading this work over the last year. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to Crisis. For those who don't know us, we are the national charity for homelessness, and we have been operating since 1967. We're really well known for our research and our evidence base. So we have a team that works really hard to understand what are the underlying causes of homelessness. And we've been campaigning since our foundation. So we were actually formed around a protest movement. So we're an activist charity who lobbies for change. And we don't believe that homelessness is inevitable or can't be prevented. We actually wrote a plan a few years ago, which actually gives the answers to how we can end homelessness. So we actively say we want to put ourselves out of business. We don't want to exist forever. That is one of the things which I love about working at Crisis, is we know we've got a problem we can solve. We are pretty well known for our Christmas activities. So we use Christmas as an opportunity to engage those experiencing homelessness in our services and use it as a route to ending their homelessness for good. So that gives you a bit of background to Crisis. And my role at Crisis is running our businesses. So my job is to generate money and build awareness of the charity's work and offer opportunities for those experiencing homelessness to end their homelessness through the training we provide in our businesses. And our team consists of our shops, which had a brilliant reopening week last week, our cafe, which I'm in today, and we do some e-commerce work. We have a furniture restoration team in Liverpool. And what I'm about to speak to you today is our venture studio from Crisis, which is quite unusual in the charity sector, but we have set up a entrepreneurship centre within the heart of the charity to end homelessness. So we work with about 8,000 people across Crisis every year to end their homelessness. But we know that the work that we do is not enough to end homelessness for good. And the pandemic has obviously in lots of ways shone a light on how homelessness could be ended. So you'll remember last year there was a real effort to get those who are experiencing rough sleeping or in accommodation that wasn't suitable into temporary accommodation, into hotels to keep them safe during the pandemic. So it's really shone a light on homelessness and with collective action, how we can try and tackle elements of homelessness. But there is a real risk of the rise of homelessness as we move on from the pandemic and things such as the furlough scheme end. And we also know that funding is at a low in the private and public sector to tackle this issue. And there's also a challenge for charities such as us in being able to leverage resources to tackle problems. So one of the biggest challenges for charities such as ourselves is that actually there are all these brilliant social enterprises who are emerging, who can act in a much more agile and nimble way and can tackle social problems in a way that sometimes being a large charity means that you can't. And actually, I think that's really exciting. And I think that's something that we should be taking advantage of. But, you know, charities need to engage with social enterprises and need to think about how they could act in more of a social enterprise way to tackle problems. There's also a challenge for our funding in the future. So there's a decline of individual giving. People over the last 5 years have not been giving as much. So actually we need to look for new sources of income to deliver the important services that we deliver to end people's homelessness. There's a real appetite from people increasingly to be involved in the solution. So people don't want to just give money to charities. They want to be involved in actually tackling the problems and use their skills, whether they're accountants, you know, whether they're business coaches. People want to be actively involved in tackling the problems. And also that's especially true of the younger generation. So we know that Gen Z in particular are really conscious about their social impact on the world and want to be involved in solving problems. So we believe that by leveraging the resources of social entrepreneurs, by leveraging lots of different people from all walks of life, we can tackle problems in a different way. And when this is a picture of my old workplace. So I didn't work in the tower, that would be odd, but I used to work at Imperial College London before I worked for Crisis. And I worked with the most amazing entrepreneurs. They were coming up with these deep tech, deep science ideas. They would raise millions of pounds for these fantastic ideas. But what they always lacked, more often than not, were a connection to those who were experiencing the problem, or having a really solid understanding of how their solution could tackle the problem that they were facing. And could you imagine if you could bring that world-class talent together with corporates, together with charities, together with all the resources that are emerging for impact businesses at the moment. Imagine what you could do to accelerate the solution to a problem such as homelessness. So that's how we came up with the Venture Studio from Crisis. We basically want to accelerate an end to homelessness through entrepreneurship by bringing all those individuals together and harnessing the talent of those involved in entrepreneurship. So what will the Venture Studio actually do, and what is it doing at the moment? So our work covers 4 different areas. We support those who experience homelessness to access support for self-employment. So we've offered a program called Changing Lives for a number of years, and every year we give out 60 grants to those experiencing homelessness to set up their own businesses or to get education and training. We are going to be building our own businesses. So we believe that there are businesses we can create, and we're exploring at the moment, such as housing solutions that could both generate income, but also, and most importantly, achieve our mission. We're going to be investing, and we are beginning to select businesses to invest in, which we believe have solutions to end homelessness. So there are social enterprises out there who are delivering solutions to end homelessness. And it's really exciting for us to be able to be involved in shaping the direction of those businesses and working with them to make sure that their solutions access those most in need. And we also have a role, finally, in supporting our staff in becoming a more entrepreneurial organisation. So learning from entrepreneurs and the work they're doing outside of Crisis to improve our operations internally. So this isn't new to Crisis. This isn't something that we're just dabbling with on the sides. Entrepreneurship has been the heart of the organisation for a number of years. So actually, I heard this story from one of our directors, and when we were originally founded, part of the income we managed to raise was from the sale of furniture. It's not the same furniture business that now exists, but actually we have always been pretty entrepreneurial. During the pandemic, we gave grants to small organisations that were doing innovative work to accelerate their solutions to help end homelessness. We've been running businesses for a number of years. We have a really successful retail network in London, which supports generating income, but also giving people opportunities to train in a live retail environment. And our Changing Lives program has actually been running for a number of years to allow people to explore entrepreneurship as a route to end their homelessness. So we're not just seeing the Venture Studio having a local UK impact. Actually, again, working at Imperial, I saw some solutions that were incredible across the world. And actually, it's not really about where the solutions are found, it's about making sure the relevant solutions are applied to the problem. So we're going to be looking to work with businesses in 3 specific areas. We're looking to work with businesses who can help us prevent homelessness. So how can we identify those who are at risk of homelessness and intervene sooner? We want to create more housing. So we know that the reality is that policies, we need forward-thinking policies to end homelessness, and entrepreneurship on its own won't end homelessness. But if we could create more housing and what interesting businesses are emerging that could help us accelerate that. And how do we make sure that people sustain themselves out of homelessness? And what solutions are there out there to make sure that someone doesn't end up falling back into homelessness, that it truly is a permanent move for them? So we're acting very much like a startup at the moment. The Venture Studio, we launched in September 2020, so we're still pretty early doors. But at the heart of the studio is we want to ensure those experiencing homelessness are at the heart of our
Yeah, we'll just jump straight into the Q&A. We seem to have a technical issue there with Liz. Unfortunately, you can't depend on me. Oh, there you go. Liz, I'll let you go back in. Sorry, buddy.
That's okay. So we just want to make sure that the work that we're doing is really based on the evidence of what actually will and what can truly end homelessness. So we're looking to work with people outside of the charity to do this. We absolutely can't do this alone. So we're looking to work in partnership with corporates and with other charities. We want this to benefit the whole sector, with startups that we might want to invest in, and with lots of different types of organisations. So we're currently building up lots of alliances at the moment. And this gives a sense of the types of businesses we're looking for in those partnerships. So it could be across prop tech, clean tech, health tech, ed tech. We're looking for fairly early stage businesses as well. So we're not looking for businesses that perhaps are already well established. We want to help shape the solutions that could help end homelessness. So you can't do this on your own. Over the last 6 months, we've built an incredible team who've been working really, really hard to deliver our programme of work. And this is the type of activity we've been doing over the last few months. So we've been doing a lot of work to generate awareness of the existence of the studio, to recruit startups. I think we've had a pipeline now of nearly 200 startups that we've been speaking to, exploring opportunities to work with them. So we've been doing lots of events and lots of activities. At the heart of our principles is that we believe as well that it is diverse ventures that will have the most success, and we want to work with diverse ventures. So we've been working really closely with an amazing organisation in the UK, YSYS, to look at how do we make sure that we're working with diverse entrepreneurs and investing in diverse entrepreneurs. We've been doing, you're going to see a couple of Zoom screenshots, and I don't know how much they show you, but we've been doing lots of work to engage people through hackathons and exploring new solutions to end homelessness. We want to create a pipeline of new ideas. So we did a fantastic event very recently with Dean Developers, where we had lots of people from across the UK giving their time to come up with new solutions to end homelessness. And they came up in 2 weeks with new web platforms, new apps. It was just absolutely fantastic, the quality that we got. And we've been doing a lot to engage our staff. So we've been running lots of forums to help our staff understand how entrepreneurship can be used in their workplace to tackle homelessness. We've also been doing a little bit of work to try and raise awareness through press and publicity. There's always more we can do there. But what are the lessons that I've learned so far in the delivery of this work? So, like I said, we've only been running since September, but one of the key lessons for me is it's really important in this work that you have a depth of understanding. So you really need to know the problem you're trying to solve, and you need to really understand, especially in a charity setting where actually investing in ventures is still really new for this sector, how you can navigate charity structures, how you can navigate the law around what you can do and what you can't do as a charity. It's really important to make sure you've really spent the time being an expert in those areas and an expert in your policy areas too that you're trying to tackle. It's really important to have a talented, diverse and driven team. So we would not have been able to achieve what we have achieved over the last year without an incredible team who are really driven, and by ending homelessness, they really care about the problem, but they also are really creative, and there's a lot of trust in the team. So I basically credit the progress that we've made to the team itself. And internal comms is really important, just as the external comms. So we've been doing a lot of work to reach outside of the organisation to bring people in to work with us. But actually, I'd argue that it's so important to make sure stakeholders from within your organisation, if they're going to buy into this, are involved too. So we built up something called a V team, where we've engaged staff from our finance team through to our fundraising team in actually helping us develop the studio. So it hasn't been done as a piece of innovation theatre at the side of the charity. It's been embedded with people's day-to-day work. And finally, I'd say do your research. So doing your research on the types of organisations you could partner with, the potential that's out there. I think spending the time really understanding the landscape of what's out there and what's possible is really important too. So that's me, Alistair. If anyone wants to find out more about the Venture Studio, you'll find a web link here. So crisis.org.uk, Venture Studio, you can find out more about us there. The best thing you can do, I would say, is follow us on Twitter. We have a monthly newsletter. You can keep in touch with what we're doing to end homelessness there, or follow our page on LinkedIn. It's been brilliant to join you this morning. Thank you very much for having me.
If you can hang on for 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll basically, we're going to go live now, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions if that's okay. So I love what you're doing. I think it's just so responsive, not just because of the pandemic, but because there definitely needs some innovation to happen within the charity sector, full stop. So it seems like you're taking a brave lead in that. Is there any other organizations, I suppose, similar to you that are doing something similar, maybe not even in the UK, but elsewhere? Or is this a new model completely?
So I think lots of charities are trying to look at how that they can harness entrepreneurship to basically tackle the problems that they're working at. And actually, we've just formed a collaboration with 3 or 4 other leading charities to develop a new fundraising venture. So I know there are charities who have an appetite to use entrepreneurship. I think I think that we're just approaching it in perhaps a slightly different way. We're absolutely keen, whilst we're leading this work, for it not to be a vanity project. This isn't about crisis ending homelessness. This is about how do we bring people, lots of people together to from different companies, different organisations, and share this. So what I want to do through this work is actually evidence to the rest of the charity sector how it can help them improve how they're tackling whatever problem they're trying to solve. So for me, it's more important that we're really transparent in what we're doing and sharing those lessons as we go, and that we're sharing knowledge with our own sector in homelessness, but also with other organisations too. I'd be looking at organisations such as WaterAid, who've been doing some really interesting work in entrepreneurship for years, I'd also point to I'd say WaterAid actually would be my other.
Yeah. I think WaterAid is a really good call. And I was going to ask you as well, you mentioned YSYS, and I'm thinking of Deborah here and the brilliant work she does in terms of obviously diverse founders. And obviously, and then we're following on for that. The next session we have Izzy Obang from Foundervine, who's going to be talking about obviously diversity in tech. Do you think we're doing enough, obviously, to reach out to founders from different sectors or from different backgrounds? How can we solve the problems that we have in society if it's just us in one type of room talking to one type of person? What else can we do?
So we're absolutely not doing enough, full stop. So before I worked at Crisis, I did a lot of work around supporting female entrepreneurs. And what was intensely frustrating year after year is seeing big corporates investing lots of money in reports saying there's a problem. What I never saw those companies do enough of was putting money into the action or committing themselves to really hard promises. And another organisation that I'd like to call out as doing fantastic work is Included VC. So I know Nikita, who runs that organisation, we used to work together. She has done something really brave and different, and is actually changing how the types of investors that are involved, because actually we know one of the problems is where the money's coming from, who's making the decisions about which businesses access which money. And until you tackle that, you're not going to ensure that diverse founders are really getting the money. So I think Included VC is another organisation to look at, which is doing something really meaningful, but it requires people investing in those solutions, not just saying there's a problem. And I think a lot more money could be given to tackling diversity.
Yeah, great answer. And it 100% agree with everything you just said. My next question is slightly more focused on who you look to collaborate with. So you mentioned obviously working with other charities, organizations, and in terms of the tech space, there's the tech for good type company that would be limited, but probably have a social purpose or mission. Are you as interested in working with them as much as you are like not-for-profits, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So if a tech for good company have a solution that could help us achieve our mission. So I think there are lots of entrepreneurship accelerators and business centres already out there. What Crisis shouldn't be doing as an organisation is ploughing our resources into anything that isn't about ending homelessness. So there's no point a business who's tech for good, who doesn't have something that's relevant to our mission coming to us, because I think our supporters would really question us just doing entrepreneurship for the sake of it rather than to tackle our mission or deliver our mission. So yeah, we definitely want to work with businesses, but as I said, we're really clear about that it has to be around solutions to end homelessness. Now, what's really interesting is some businesses don't realize that their solution really could help us. So it could be like a data insights analytics company that doesn't realize actually their tool could help us identify those most at risk of homelessness. So there is a little bit of education we need to do around what are the solutions that we want to see come forward to support our work.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to do two quick shout outs to Northern Irish startups. So Community Calling, they would have been perhaps pitching in this session. Unfortunately, they can't just because of personal reasons, but they're doing some great work connecting obviously those that need support with those that can offer help. So Community Calling would be a great call. Esther as well, who I think we've mentioned before and obviously spoke about before, but Esther are doing some great work, obviously supporting in the charity giving space. And my next lead on question from that is I would absolutely love, my brain was just going 10 a penny thinking about how many great people we have in Northern Ireland who would want to help you on that mission. And the one thing that struck me is Northern Ireland's really great at setting a really big goal. So you mentioned obviously aiming to end homelessness. You want to take yourself out of action in a sense. I think there's hundreds of people in Northern Ireland that would want to help you with that because they're passionate about change. My question is, and hopefully you say yes, can we bring you here to do an ideation session, whether it's virtual or otherwise, with loads of leaders in Northern Ireland to see if we can help you on that mission?
I would absolutely adore that. So yeah, we've been doing similar activities we did an international ideation session back in June, July as a result of the pandemic. We still have one at the team, which one is still running. They're actually based in 6 different countries in sort of developing this solution as a mediation service. We did the Dean Developers event only a few months ago, and yeah, really up for doing that. That sounds great.
Awesome. Liz, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm really indebted with you spending the time speaking to us today, but I think we're all indebted because you're trying to solve something which is such a massive problem. And if we can hopefully come up with some vaccines, we can hopefully come up with a solution that impacts a lot of other people as well in terms of homelessness. So let's work on loads of goals, yours included. So Liz, thank you for your time today.
It was lovely to join you. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, Liz. Thank you. Right, guys, we're staying live in the studio because nope, I do apologize. We're going to go to an advert break. It's called an advert break. It's a Derry-ish advert break. It's a video from Ulster University Excellence Awards and Morris Mulvina.
My name is Gillian Cameron and I was a Knowledge Transfer Partnership Associate with Ulster University and Inspire Wellbeing. The partnership lasted for 2 years and the aim was to develop online supports for mental health services.
I'm Professor Morris Mulvina, Professor of Computer Science at Ulster University. Before we had this partnership, the issue was scaling the proposition to the clients of Inspire Wellbeing. Counselling was face-to-face, it was very people-intensive.
They had no in-house capability, so the partnership between Ulster gives the grounding in evidence-based research, so we were able to develop a robust online clinical system.
Primary benefit of the research for Inspired Wellbeing is to facilitate within the company a capability to develop their own digital wellbeing solutions.
The partnership between Inspire and Ulster University led to the development of the Inspire Support Hub, which is currently being trialled with 85,000 teachers and special needs assistants in Ireland.
Within Ulster University, we've been working with colleagues in psychology, building our interdisciplinary research capability. And this knowledge transfer partnership allowed us to really build on that and to develop internally. The most interesting part of the research program was to see how people interacted with a digital persona, in effect, in such a sensitive area of mental health.
Right, folk, I think you can all agree that was pretty inspiring. I think the good thing about the charity sector is how perhaps smaller some of the organizations are than you actually think in terms of the structure. And that means if you can act quite flat in terms of how you manage, then you can make a lot of changes and innovate quick. So I really wish Crisis all the best. Next up, we have Davika Woods. So Davika hopefully is with us. I'm going to basically just read through her bio. She's an executive leader and accomplished entrepreneur with 9 years of hands-on innovation and digital transformation experience. That includes a successful startup exit, an Imperial trained cancer research scientist holding a master's in public health, a passion to innovate and disrupt in the care industry. That came from her being a young carer at the age of 12, which led to a winning industry recognized awards for VIDA. She's an awarded health tech pioneer in Europe in 2018. She's been featured in Glamour magazine, Cosmopolitan, the FT, the Business Insider, and was featured on the front cover of Courier magazine as a startup to watch in 2018. Most recently, she was awarded with in 2019 from the United Nations with a She Innovates campaign for pushing the boundaries to break stereotypes in STEM. So let's hope that she's with us now. I think obviously the guys are just checking to see if she's with us. Okay, no Joy at the moment. No Joy. If we could go to a quick landing slide, I'm just going to double check and then we can come back in 1 second. Well, look at that. This is not Davika Woods. How are you, Roisin?
I'm very well, Alistair.
Good.
Very
okay,
well.
so Roisin is with us in the room. Davika, unfortunately, cannot be here right now, so we're going to check in a wee bit and hopefully she can jump in after the panel. But I think the best thing to do is just move forward with the panel and then we'll come back live to Davika if we possibly can. So we're talking about social purpose today, Roisin, and I'm delighted alongside Roisin that we're going to be joined by Lisa Chadwick from Young Planet, Ahmed from Evoco, and Gaz Rutherford from Arc Fitness. I'm hoping they'll probably do a better job at obviously saying the companies they work for and what they do. So Gaz, while Ahmed joins us, if you want to just explain what you do.
Sure, guys, how are you all doing? It's great to be here. Really great setup. My name is Gary Rutherford and I'm the founder and the project development manager for Arc Fitness. And we're a not-for-profit organisation, and what we do is we work with people in recovery from substance misuse disorders through access to physical activity and ongoing education. And we just have a real passion for giving hope and opportunity to people that have been struggling with addiction for a long time. So that's the nutshell. Massively passionate about what we do. It's something that's very close to my heart as somebody with a background of addiction. So to be able to give that insight and that hope back to people is just phenomenal.
Gaz, love what you do. You're a Derry man. I was going to say much like myself, but you can tell I haven't got a Derry accent. But I've lived in Derry for about 16 years, and I just love what you're doing to support obviously those that have some sort of addiction. It's mostly alcohol, is it, or are you looking at other areas that you can work into as well?
So at the present moment in time, we specifically look at substances, so alcohol and drugs. As the service grows and the service expands, we will start to look into other behaviours that are associated with it as well. Because a lot of the behaviours are common. I suppose the outset of setting it up was based on my personal experience and what I knew most of, which is what kind of identified the way we were going to go at the start. But there's a massive need, there's a huge demand, and there's a lot of people out there need help.
Absolutely. When we get Liz from Crisis over, whether it's virtual or otherwise, I'm going to get you to jump on that, because obviously I think you know the space. I think you can support what they want to do as well. So let's hopefully join those dots a little bit as well. Lisa, you're based in London, but you have some heritage back in Derry as well, I believe.
I do. I'm from Limavady, actually, but have been here for about 30 years. My dad's from Derry, but I grew up in Africa, actually, so my accent's a bit funny, even though I'm a very proud Northern Irish person. I came over here to UCD over 30 years ago and ended up staying. I have a background in media sales, content marketing, worked in the live music industry for quite a while, which is where I got into the kind of the tech side. Worked for now Tech Nation. I know you had Gary on from Tech Nation yesterday. We're there for a while. And now I work for the most fantastic app called Young Planet. which was founded by parents of 3 boys, Jason and Emma Ash, to reduce the waste involved with bringing up children. They cost a lot of money. You get a lot of, you have to acquire a lot of things for your children, not just toys and clothes, but all the equipment that goes with them. And then when they grow out of it, what do you do? Having in Africa, there was everything that we got was secondhand. I'm obsessed with recycling and passing things on. So this app just completely got me here, and we started up in 2019. When I joined about just over a year ago, we had 3,000 users, and as of this week we've got about 45,000 users across the UK, and we helped families to pass on items that their kids have grown out of to other families for free, keeping it out of land. So it's got a real social purpose and is a really lovely place to work.
I love it, and I think the reason we connected is we actually featured you on Startacus as a startup. Yeah. Little did we know that connection was there, obviously, to the Northwest, and then bingo, obviously we're able to have you with us today, so it's fantastic. Ahmed, I'd love you to introduce what you're doing as well. Great to have you with us from Dublin, I believe.
Yeah, based in Dublin here. Thanks for having me, Alistair. And I'm Ahmed, and I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Voco, and we exist to help people eat within planetary boundaries. So we do that through our consumer app that allows you to track, improve, and offset your food emissions. And I suppose everything we do are all based around trying to help people kind of change their behaviors and find a way that works for them to live within kind of our planetary boundaries, and make sure we're working towards those Paris goals.
Beautiful, absolutely. When do you have to have those Paris goals set by?
Yeah, so I suppose we're kind of, the goals that we set for our users within is we have the kind of grand goal of trying to reach towards kind of an 80% reduction in kind of our CO2 emissions by 2030. But I suppose we give them kind of intermediate goals in between as well on how they can try and achieve that.
Brilliant. Love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. And then Roisin, from a more grassroots background, obviously being someone that's been in the community space in Derry for quite a few years, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are at now.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alistair. I coordinate Northwest Community Network. So we are a network organisation and we cover the Derry and Strabane area. So we try and support groups, I suppose, to become stronger. We provide training, so we do a lot of capacity building work. We also try and get groups to sort of think about collaborating together, and we also try and make sure that as a network we're reaching out to the other sectors, because I think that's very important. If we want to make a difference, particularly for the Derry and Strabane area, we need to connect. We can't do that on our own. We need to connect with the other sectors, so we make sure that the community has a voice at a lot of the forums that may not have included community before. So that's really what we do.
Brilliant. And I think it's interesting because in the last panel that we had, it was very much focused on health and well-being, and the same feedback came up. What can we do within the city in the next 10 years? The thing that came up was that connectivity between all of the great organizations that are doing things. So it's great that you have that there and give us that connectivity and help join those dots, because it is quite a busy space, isn't it? Obviously, there's a lot of people working in trying to make a difference. So Ahmed, yours is a limited company. Would that be fair?
Yeah, we're a for-profit company, but we're very much a social enterprise.
Absolutely. And I don't say that obviously because I'm a limited company, but with some social purpose there. And the only reason I ask that is because the reason why you're all here today is because within social enterprise and social purpose, there are lots of different business models that you can have. So I'm just trying to kind of gather, obviously, is one better than the other, or do they all fit together to make a whole space? Lisa, obviously yourselves, obviously with Young Planet, is it a limited company as well?
It is a limited company. We are, we get mistaken quite a lot for a charity, because there are a lot of charities that, especially during the pandemic, have kind of started up to reach young parents who are struggling to feed and clothe their children. But we are very, very much a peer-to-peer marketplace. We have just done a funding round where we will drive the app nationally. We're just about to launch nationwide, but we will also monetize the app. We've already had quite a lot of interest from FMCG brands that want to partner with us, but we want to, make sure that the app works for people. We've done a lot of research into, we get a lot of user feedback about what works well, because we're targeting mums specifically who want to be able to pass on these things for free, know that they're going to be reused, but are kind of fed up with the eBays and the whatever else, those kind of marketplaces out there. So we are looking to monetize the app this year. And we get asked a lot by partners and by people that we're going out and talking to, how are you going to monetize that? Because they do understand that it is going to be a commercial entity.
Yeah. No, great. And again, I asked that because I think within sometimes the charity space, there's a concern about talking about obviously having to balance the books in a sense. It's, and Gaz, I just wanted to ask from your perspective, you're a CIC, I believe, if I remember rightly, but have you ever considered having a limited company offshoot, or what was your thinking behind obviously that at the start? Obviously, was that an okay thing to do as a limited or CIC?
So the initial thought behind it for me was always, so my desire for the business and organization was to give back. So for me, non-profit seemed like a really appropriate way to do that. And in doing that, probably naively at the time, without recognizing how difficult it was to become sustainable. We all know the challenges around funding. So I think I like the idea of, we're talking about business models. So why not, does it have to be one single one? And this is more along the lines of what I'm thinking now. So we want to be able to reach our community. So we want to be able to access that funding to be able to deliver things free to people who can't access that. But at the same time, Alistair, we need to balance the books. Things don't pay for themselves. So we need to then look at other means of doing that and reusing that profit, that money, to develop our services, to grow the staff that we have, to create jobs and create opportunities for people. And I just want to ask what Lisa mentioned there. People mistake you for a charity. And I think it sometimes happens when you're doing good things and you're doing it quite openly and quite publicly, and a larger extent they assume that you're a charity. And we have never said that we were. And it's funny, and it prevents funding, it prevents people from supporting you because you're not a charity. A lot of the larger organizations are quite reluctant to support you if you don't have a charity number. So, we're starting to find there needs to be a balance, and that's where we're currently at now.
Yeah, guys, it's a great point, that balance. And Roisin, I was going to ask yourself then, from more of a community and perhaps more the traditional CIC sector or social enterprise kind of classified sector, is there more of a movement towards understanding that it's not a not-for-profit, it's a business purpose and profit organization? Is that change happening, do you think?
Yeah, I do think that change is happening, because I've, I would say in the last couple of years had quite a few people come to our organization to ask about how do I set up a CIC. And I do think that people are thinking that way. We don't have to be a charity, but we want to do this good work. And there's also difficulties as well sometimes about becoming a charity. There's quite a lot of legislation, which sometimes I think puts people off. So I do think there's more of a leaning towards the CIC and the social enterprise, because people want to do good work, but they don't want to maybe be a charity. Yeah. So it's similar to the setups that yourselves have. Definitely seems to be more of that coming up.
Yeah. And obviously even wider than that, obviously with Ahmed and Lisa and the organizations or the companies, sorry, that you work for or found, I'm assuming, Ahmed, that there's more of an acceptance that you're a tech for good platform or with a social goal, but ultimately you're helping to make that mission happen by having turnover and making sure that you have revenue that comes in to support the overall mission. Would that be something that there is more acceptance of now, do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. I definitely agree with that, because I think particularly at the very beginning of our journey, we would have had a lot of those questions around: Are you actually just a charity? Are you a charity? And is that what you're doing? Are you actually for profit? I think for us, particularly, one of the big reasons why we decided to go for the for-profit structure was the fact that really for a B2C company or for the success of a B2C company or anyone focusing on the consumer side, you really need to hit that level of scale to make it kind of financially sustainable and be able to actually maximize your impact. So that was kind of the number one reason why we decided to kind of go for the for-profit. But then also kind of personally for ourselves as well, we thought that you know, in the 21st century, it's actually just not acceptable anymore to have companies that exist that don't have some sort of good that they're giving back to the community. And if we could start to, you know, show with ourselves as an example, as a company that is for profit, but is actually giving back a lot to the community, then really we could help really drive that movement in the industry as well. So they're really the reasons why we went down that route.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great point, and I think it sometimes gets lost that even a social enterprise or a a tech for good company or a company with a social purpose can even have technology at its disposal. I think a lot of people think it's quite a traditional space. You're using technology as the main way to get people to look at their carbon footprint in a sense, and and offset that. So do you think it's the younger generation, that Gen Z, or even younger, that's basically using your platform, or have you found that your demographic is different perhaps to what you would have first thought?
I think for us, we're definitely seeing the majority of our engagement coming from kind of the under 35, so maybe a bit more kind of that millennial kind of demographic coming through, but we are getting users across the board as well. And I think really it's that kind of generation, kind of the millennials, a little bit older and a little bit younger as well, that have kind of become obsessed with kind of tracking everything they do. So there's that whole quantified self movement where we're tracking everything from kind of calories to mindfulness to steps, and we're seeing, and that whole kind of health and wellness industry has done really well in changing behaviors to get people to do better things that are good for themselves. So really for us, we're trying to use technology in a similar way and kind of borrow from that industry, but to bring it into kind of food sustainability.
Great stuff. Love what you do, by the way. And obviously, Lisa as well, love what Young Planet is doing as well. And I just wanted to find out whether, do you think the pandemic, in a sense, we talk a lot about the digital divide, obviously poorer families, poorer children not having access to computers and technology. How do you address that in terms of obviously the next generation passing on of toys, etc.? Is there any way of making sure that you don't create a divide, in a sense, obviously between the poor and the young being able to access technology for what you do?
Well, that's a good question. I think I don't really know the answer to that. I think there has been a massive divide in terms of access to technology, but there's been a real, one of the things that we find with our app is it creating a community feel. So you're meeting lots of people in your local area, and you're passing on things to people that you can see, you might see in the street, or they might pass in your local community. So for example, I put a scooter on the, I'm a user of the app. I put a scooter that my daughter had gone out of, and a mum from the school that my kid goes to picked it up. We did a massive funding round at our school, a crowdfunding round for computers that kids could use at home who didn't have access to technology at home. And I know that a few people looked at the app specifically to be able to access the digital devices or things like that. We haven't had a huge amount of those on the app yet, but as the app is growing so quickly and has grown so much during the pandemic, despite the lockdowns, because people are able to pass on things socially distanced and make sure they're sanitized and all of that. They're not able to get into the shops, so they're able to get things that their kids might need through the app. And I think as it grows and it goes nationwide and people are starting to get rid of digital devices and old computers and old laptops, there's definitely an opening there. In terms of the divide, what I've found, I've gone out and talked to quite a few charities about the app, and it's not about getting the charities to sign up to the app. It's about getting the parent coming to the charities to know about the app so that they can use it and request it. Most of them have phones, so they're able to access the app. The biggest problem for them is transport and getting to the item. So picking up a cot if they don't have access to a car or whatever it may be. But that is something that we will be, again, this round of funding is allowing us to include postage and transportation within the app as it grows. So hopefully,
Lisa, I think that's It's a great answer. And obviously you're not there to solve the problem of digital divide. You are there to obviously make sure that that second, third hand-me-down goes to someone that needs it and can use it rather than it being disposed in a landfill.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's the solution you provide. I just think, obviously, like you mentioned, obviously the laptop use, and obviously then when people don't need them anymore, that could be somewhere where you could grow and find a massive space as well. So it seems like Young Planet has a lot of potential to scale and grow into other social missions as well. Yeah.
And I think the work.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that the amount of waste that we produce is so huge. I've got a friend, a university friend, that works for a body that is starting up to recycle small electronic items. So manufacturers are responsible for the whole life cycle of electronic items, whether that be an electronic toy that your child's playing with, or a camera, whatever it may be, they want to work with us so that even if a piece of equipment can't be reused by another family, it can be recycled through them, so that is not going to waste.
Excellent, great. Again, love what you're doing and the impact that you're having in terms of obviously that sustainability of the things that we have. Roisin, I just wanted to touch on the Ideas Fund, which is an initiative that is in other parts of the UK, but it's been rolled out in Derry and Strabane. So could you tell us a little bit more about that as well? Yeah,
the Ideas Fund, Alistair, is with the British Science Association and the Wellcome Fund. And it's kind of a sort of unique and very different way of funding groups. So the whole idea of the Ideas Fund is where the communities will be brought together with a researcher, and they will work in partnership on an idea that they feel needs to be addressed within their community. And the theme of it is around mental well-being. So yeah, we're delighted that Derry and Strabane has been included in this. The other areas are Hull, Oldham and Highlands and Islands in Scotland. So from our point of view, as we're development coordinators, so we're developing the programme and helping groups sort of finalise their idea and pair them up with a researcher, with a view to that partnership of working with the researcher will last and will develop beyond the funding. And there's also an opportunity there for researchers, maybe within academic institutions who have not maybe had a lot of opportunities to do proper community engagement, for them to learn from communities, do the community engagement, but also for the community group to learn some of the research skills as they'll deliver this idea in partnership. So it's been really busy since beginning of January, and the applications are going in May. So there's a lot of fantastic ideas coming forward, and I just think the timing of it has been just excellent because we're coming out of COVID. There's a lot of mental health issues within our area even before COVID, and I think it's just a really good initiative, and I'm delighted to be working on it because we need just more support around mental health and mental well-being within the area. So the Ideas Fund has just come at a brilliant time.
Roisin, love what you're doing as well, and also the impact it might have. My follow-up question to that is, would you like some of those ideas that come forward and the research that's done to then become more sustainable businesses in their own right, or to strengthen an existing business so that it can scale in a sense outside of Derry, or is it just for a one-off project, if that makes sense?
No, I can see opportunities that are going to be able to scale up after this. There's two levels to the funding. There's the funding, I suppose, for brand new ideas or ideas that not have been tested, and then there's a bigger amount of money for groups that maybe have done a bit of testing on an idea and want to develop it further. So I can see even beyond the funding, when the funding has finished, that groups will be able to develop their ideas further, or there might be opportunities and ideas that come out of some of the work that they're doing. And if they develop that relationship with the researcher, there's going to be loads of opportunities for them to develop their work maybe in a different way, or to test out different activities. So yeah, I can see it developing beyond the funding.
So my next question back to Gaz at the top there, or certainly the top for me, and I love your blue background, by the way, bit of vibrancy in your background. I'm all for a different, it's funny how things change you over lockdown, isn't it? It's like, I've never thought about a background before on Zoom, but after 12 months of this, any different color is good. I hope you like my living room, by the way, with the lovely pink that we've gone through today. Gaz, I just wanted to ask, pandemic has been tough for everybody, 12 months. 13 months of this, and we seem to be coming out of it. But the one thing that I think probably unifies us all in this room, or on Zoom as well, is the fact that it seems that as society is wanting to shift the way that we look at life in some ways. And that mission, that social purpose seems to be much more at the core of everything. So do you think, as much as the pandemic has been tough, it's potentially a great time for the real innovators to come forward within social purpose?
Definitely. And I think a lot of the drivers, excuse me, for that are community groups. Because throughout the pandemic, I've watched so many community groups do so much work above and beyond what they can do in their community. And it was highly visible because we're doing a lot of stuff now through social media, and we now have Zoom. And I think people are seeing that. And what the pandemic has taught us was about this idea of connection, and not just this digital connection, but as people. So it's starting to open up that kind of ideology that, like, we're all in this together. How can we help each other as much as possible? And that's a really encouraging place to be. And especially if you're out to create social change, or you're out to make that impact on your community. So although it has been really difficult and challenging for lots of organizations in lots of ways, like even for us, our gym has been closed since last March. We had everything that we do at present is online, which we adapted to really quickly. We were lucky enough to do it actually quite well, but it has hit other people quite hard. But I think it's made people realise the importance of looking after each other and looking after the people around us, and that for me is a really nice thing to see. But I do believe that was heavily driven by the community and the voluntary sector.
Absolutely, Gaz, and they're the silent heroes in a sense of obviously the last 12 months, and obviously credit to all of them. Obviously the work that they silently do by knocking on someone's door even and just checking they're okay. But in terms of community, I can't think of one bigger community than the world. And Ahmed, that is your ultimate goal, is to create that climate change to be, to happen, to unify people together. So do you think in a weird way, the pandemic has actually helped in terms of the climate emergency conversation as well?
Yeah, definitely. I'd 100% agree on that, because even I think if just straight after kind of most of the countries went into lockdown back in May last year, we saw there was a 4,550% increase across Google platforms in people searching to how to live a more sustainable lifestyle. So it's just showing that there's so much demand for people wanting to not go back to what we were at before. Because if you actually look back at all the stats for 2019 was like kind of like peak flights, peak everything. It was kind of us getting to the peak of kind of our consumption. And now going into kind of COVID, into this kind of COVID period, we have that opportunity to kind of build back better. And speaking, say, to our own users as well, I think the majority of them found that the pandemic actually gave them more headspace to actually think about kind of the more simpler things, particularly having more time to cook, more time to think about how they could transition to, say, a plant-based lifestyle, experimenting more with their diets and things like that. And I think ultimately it's been a good kind of period for us all to pause and kind of think, how can we change our lifestyles for the better? And hopefully coming out of it, we will do that, and we will start to see kind of a lot more change as well. So
absolutely, Ahmed, and you guys are a dream panel because you kind of keep linking to each other indirectly. So Ahmed, you mentioned consumerism, and then obviously Lisa, the shared economy model. Is that what you operate within, or is it a different model that I'm not getting the right phrase?
We're the circular economy, where things are reused and passed on. So the sharing economy would be your, like Airbnb, where you're sharing the house that you own. But we work in the area where, the circular economy works really, really well in that it reduces waste, which is our main aim. It helps people to reuse and repurpose items, I suppose. Other businesses that we work with, you've probably heard of Olio, the food. I don't know if you've heard of Olio, actually, the food sharing app. There's another one called Rubies in the Rubble, which again takes food waste from suppliers and farms and makes chutneys and jams and things out of that. It's a Scottish girl that runs it. So it's about just making use of things that would otherwise go to waste and making sure that they're continually reused and passed on again. So we've had items on the app that somebody has requested from a parent, their child has used it, and then they've put it on the app again, so that which is the whole aim, so that things just keep going round and round and being reused and again kept out of landfill.
And again, thinking of community, the more that obviously that word is used, the more it makes me feel that you're going to scale. And I'm guessing that you're gonna focus on core cities to start with, or would a region like Derry Strabane be of interest, or how do you operate in terms of scaling that to other parts of the UK and Ireland?
Well, we trialled it in Hackney in 2019, which is a very, very diverse borough. It's a very big borough, and it has there's a lot of people around it will cycle and live quite a sustainable lifestyle. So we wanted to try that out because it had a very, very kind of diverse audience, and it worked really, really well. We then expanded to London over the last year. We've now expanded to a number of postcodes outside London, and we've had a bit of national coverage in the last few months. And it's been quite interesting to see where there's been uplift in sign-ups in the app, due to that national coverage. So some of the cities where we would have expected it, we didn't see an increase, and we think maybe because that particular newspaper might not have been read in that city. We have, again, as you say, the big conurbations, Manchester, Newcastle, we have seen uplift, and Northern Ireland is obviously would be a target. The differences, and we talk about this amongst ourselves, so the founders of the app live in a rural area, so a lot of people will have to drive to pick things up. I live in an urban area, I live on the outskirts of London, so 90% of the things that I've passed on have been picked up by people walking past. So that's something to take into consideration. So I think the urban areas to start with, and then it will expand out as more and more people use it, and people will find different ways to pick things up or get them posted to them.
Perfect. I again, obviously thinking about each of you individually, that you're all making a difference in one way or another, and I think that's the core message. Whether you're charity, social enterprise, or limited, the difference you make is scalable in terms of obviously how many users you eventually hit and have connected. And in terms of obviously the Derry Strabane area, Roisin, I don't think I've ever been in a place with so much passion for change. Sometimes obviously it might not go anywhere. It might just be that you're having that passion over a coffee or a beer in the local pub. Yeah. But there's so much passion in this city to want to make a difference for the good. So my question is, with all of that funding and then all of the possibility that post-pandemic we're going to have less funding out there to support the sector, how can we turn some of those people into the next Young Earth, the next Ahmed, and that next generation coming through, the understanding that profit and purpose is not a dirty word? What can we do to shape young people into that type of business?
Yeah, I think, funny, we were talking about this this morning actually, and I've had a conversation with other people about how, particularly in the community sector in Derry and Strabane, there are not a lot of younger people coming through to be sort of community leaders, and how we nearly need to do some work to try and, I suppose, not sell the community sector, but just sell that idea of you could make a difference. And I think maybe sometimes they're not completely aware of the community sector, and you know there could be a career in there for them. So it's tapping into the young people, who want to make a difference and who are passionate about the area, because as you say, Derry and Strabane, people are so passionate about the area, about the city, about making a change, about making improvements, about improving the whole society and the whole, just our community, and bringing people together. So I think it's, I don't know how we tap in. I don't know whether it's because I know there are a lot of young people who do the community development degrees at the University of Ulster. But then maybe, I'm not sure whether they go, I think quite a lot of them maybe focus on working with younger people, but there's definitely a gap there. We need to try and get the young people just thinking about how they can make a difference. And maybe it is through some of the work that you're doing, you know, the young people will be able to see that, because I'm sure it's that attraction of the technology and being involved in using technology to make a difference. So I
Yeah.
think it's getting in there to when they're,
Yeah.
you know, at a younger age.
It's very much the role models, isn't it? If you think about it, like Ahmed, obviously, when obviously what you were doing, was there anything that pulled you into the space apart from obviously wanting to make a difference? Were you involved in technology, or how did you first become part of it?
I suppose we were both Hugh and I were both mechanical engineers. So we're actually at that point where we were kind of finishing off our masters in mechanical engineering, and I think at that point I was kind of gravitating more towards a career in kind of electric vehicles or electric flight, that side of things, and that's what we had a lot of our interest in. But it was after we were kind of speaking a lot about kind of where the kind of gaps were. We kind of felt that there was a lot of people focusing on a lot more kind of deep technology solutions, and not enough people focusing on helping actual consumers change their behavior and getting the public bought into it. And even then, looking into our own lives for ourselves, was looking at that. Although we could be working on some of these big solutions, like a lot of that change needs to come from within as well to help drive the greater systems change. So I think for both of us, we decided that behavioral change was an area where we could have a lot more impact ourselves. And that's how we kind of then naturally went into the food industry from there. Because I suppose when it comes to kind of behavioral change, you need something that you interact with multiple times a day, every single day. So food industry was perfect for that. And also it was something that everyone could relate to, because I suppose everybody eats, but at the end of the day, not everybody can afford an electric vehicle.
Yeah, totally. And obviously Lisa mentioned Olio as well, and obviously the food waste kind of solution that they have. And I think it's a great example again of concentrating on a core problem and a core pain point that most people have, and then using the technology rather than having tech creating something and then wondering whether your user will ever have it or want to use it in the first place. Gaz, I just want to ask you, and this is final word really more than anything else, because I appreciate time is precious, and thank you everyone for taking part today. Gaz, you had some success with the big lottery recently. I just wanted to, that's great and congratulations. I just wanted to know how you got to that point, because I think it's really important that other people who are in that space know that there is a pathway. Was there anyone you'd like to shout out, or is there anything that you think helped you in that process that could help others?
So just to be clear, when I started this process, I knew nothing about the community and voluntary sector. So the learning curve was really steep, but it was made easier by the people in the local community. So the Bogside and Brandywell Health Forum, people like Rhoda Cooper, people that had conversations with me about how funding works, which led on to introductions with people. So, for example, you know, before we could even apply for funding for things, we needed to make sure that the organisation had everything that it required. The governance needed to be there, the accountability needed to be there, all that sort of stuff had to be there first. And then we applied for the National Lottery. They have a smaller grant fund, and it's almost like a tester. How did it get on? How did you do? What were the outcomes? And you know, and we took that, we ran a program, and it went well, and we created that relationship. And it was from creating those relationships. And also, there was a lady called Maureen Hetherington from the Junction. She knows Maureen. Was instrumental in helping us develop, you know, the funding applications, because they can be quite technical, time consuming, and you know, from that and the relationships that we formed, we were granted then almost 140,000, and the core chunk of that was for employment. So I was working for the health board, had a secure job, all that sort of stuff, and I now work full time for ARC, and we just have taken on our second full-time employee. So what that has allowed us to do is just really opened up the opportunities for us to be able to increase our capacity, because capacity was always our problem. We had a wait list from the start. We couldn't meet the demand, but at least now we can start on that. And I know we're pushed for time, but I also wanted to highlight the thing that we realized was that funding applications were challenging and hard and inconsistent, and you couldn't guarantee them. So we then reached out where we now have corporate sponsorship. So we opened that up to the organizations and the businesses around us to be able to say, well, here's who we are, here's where we are, here's where you are. Could you help us and support us? And Learning Pool, an e-learning company based in Derry, came alongside, and they're now a corporate sponsor of ours for the next 3 years. And not only financially, but also they've provided us with the online learning platform that we now use. and we're currently redeveloping that now to be able to give that out or sell that or whatever way you want to call that globally. And it's all about relationship building, and it's all about asking the questions. And if you don't ask the questions, you're not going to find out. So that's how we got to where we are. Most of our work is fundraising work, and we do a lot of that. And it was mentioned, and I think in the earlier presentation that a tough time for people. Not everybody has the money, so we need to find creative ways to do that, whether that's funding or sponsorship. And that's where we are. But so things are good.
And no, I am indebted to, and we're all indebted to the work that you're all doing individually, because without the change makers, we will just stay flat as we are. And obviously, Lisa, I know I said that was the last question from Gaz, but I can't help myself. I just want to see, obviously, from a London point of view, obviously being there, I know obviously certainly the mayor and obviously the kind of community sector in London is strong. Do you see that there's a buy-in for change, obviously from a funding level? I'm even thinking of Innovate UK and Nesta and those organisations to support limited companies, but with a social purpose. Is that being pulled through onto the ground?
I 100% agree. I think there's been a real sea change, especially during the pandemic, where people have started to really focus on businesses with a purpose, to the extent where they'll start avoiding, you probably saw on social media, corner shops that put the prices of toilet roll up by 10 times and things like that. People feel very, very strongly that they want to support business, work for businesses that make a difference to either an environmental issue or a community issue or a social issue. And as consumers support that, those are the businesses that are going to succeed. So those are the businesses that investors will focus at, because they stand out. There's so many businesses talking the talk, but not necessarily walking the walk. So if you've got businesses that do walk the walk and show that they're making an impact and show that consumers are following them, that is a no-brainer for investors, I think.
Great stuff, Lisa. And obviously, thank you ever so much for your time. Thank you, Roisin, for joining us in the studio. This is my big living room for the last 2 days, but it is actually the most I think I've spoken to people in real life as well. So it's just been wonderful for you to all join us, both in person and on Zoom. Thank you for your time. I'd love to follow up on this story and conversation in another 12 months and see where we're at. But for the short term, thank you very much. And as the title might suggest, thank you for leveling up in some way society as well. So thank you. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Right. We are staying live in the studio, and I am going to just ask if Davika is able to join us. If she isn't, then I totally understand, because she did promise that she was available for a short time period today. Danny, how are we doing? It's like the One Show, this, isn't it? With like, obviously, I'm waiting for Danny to shout something out to me. No, he's doing like a, no, she's not here. So, right, okay, on that note, I have a startup ready to pitch. And obviously, this is part of our NI Startup competition for early stage startups. They pitch to industry experts and investors, part of LEVELUP Startup Pitch Competition to win a 2K prize fund. You'll be interested to know that within this, we have tried to get startups that kind of cover the core themes of LEVELUP. And during this session, you're going to hear from a few that are looking to make changes within community in some sense, whether that is education, and then finally linking people obviously through funerals, etc. So first up is Debbie Craig with Boop.
I want to introduce Debbie Craig, founder of Boop. Debbie, over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so my name is Debbie Craig and I am founder of Boop, and Boop is an educational technology platform that is already removing the barriers to learning for children with special educational needs. And I'm really excited to be able to share with you my story. So Boop began for me as a personal journey after my son was diagnosed with autism. We experienced so many challenges and issues along the way that made it quite difficult to actually navigate his diagnosis. And actually what became apparent was there was a lack of adequate solutions, technology solutions specifically to support us as a family, but also to support his teacher in addressing his individual needs within school. There are actually 1.4 million students in the UK like Nicholas, and these students are 5 times more likely to drop out of school. There are 80% of autistic adults are unemployed. This is quite shocking for me, despite the fact that many of them have the desire and the ability to contribute and work in society. They just haven't had the right resources and the right support in place. Despite this being a personal mission, there is a global opportunity to address these long-standing issues around inclusion in education and the underrepresented SEND community across the world. Currently, only 3% of educational spend is on technology, which means that this sector is very much in its infancy and there's a lot of room for growth. COVID-19 has actually highlighted a disproportionate impact on SEND community, but it has also accelerated the demand for more robust solutions in EdTech, and also teachers and schools are actively looking for solutions to support their students. So with this in mind, I decided to use my skills as a developer to tackle these challenges and to create a solution that will enable Nicholas to enjoy the same educational experience as his mainstream peers. And my solution is Boop. Boop brings together the key people involved in his care and development. So parents, teachers, healthcare professionals, they can come together, they can work as a team, and they can provide the right learning resources to support each individual student in reaching their full potential. Boop serves students so they can safely access these unique resources and share their learning experiences within the platform. And Boop serves teachers so they can create consistency and structure in the classroom and really to get the best out of their students. And Boop serves parents by promoting positive communication with home and giving them a unique window into the classroom so that they can see their students' progress and engagement within the school. We already have over 2,000 active users on the platform across a range of schools and organisations and have received wonderfully positive feedback and engagement so far. We also have a few early adopters outside of the UK, which is surprising, and it has been organic. Okay. Our largest customer so far is Belfast Met, who have the largest special needs school in Northern Ireland, and they have 400 people on the platform, ranging in ages from 16 to 60, which is really exciting because this opens up the platform to being potentially a lifelong learning solution. And I'm excited to see where the platform goes, and I'm driven to continue its growth. Thank you very much for listening, and happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Excellent, brilliant. Thank you very much, Debbie. I'll open the floor to our judges.
Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Cool. Well done, Debbie. That was an absolutely brilliant presentation, and I love that there's a personal journey around this as well. What's the financial model? You said you got 2,000 users. Are these people that are paying to use the platform?
Yeah, we have, well, our largest customer is the Belfast Met, which actually was a bit of a surprise because we'd always kind of aimed for primary school, and they're obviously ranging in larger ages, but they've paid for an enterprise license and are actually requested a 5-year license in the future so that they have the security of having the platform because they're already very much engaged in it and don't want to lose it. And then I have other paying customers as well, yeah, so we work on a software as a subscription model, so it's a yearly annual fee, and then training on top of that and things.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, go ahead.
Hi, Debbie. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Can you tell us about how it is? I mean, it looks great, but how will you actually make the sales that you need to make in order to scale it? Like, do customers find you and come to you through inbound, or are you doing a lot of outbound lead?
Well, actually, I only really soft launched in January properly. So any customers we have so far has mostly been organic and word of mouth. So what I'm planning at the minute is to build a community of advocates and people who actively support the platform and are excited about it, but also we're looking at partnerships and distributors to help sell the platform further. So that would be the model that we'd like to go down rather than knocking on individual doors.
Last question.
Thanks a lot for that. It was a really great pitch. Can you outlined very well the I guess the size of an issue like this and how far reaching it is for individuals with learning disabilities, but particularly with autism. But you didn't really touch on a lot like any specific features or pain points that the platform can address. So could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, okay. The platform itself provides the teachers and the people who are looking after students with special needs to provide unique resources such as visual routines and schedules to help them fully understand the tasks that they have to do during the day and to be able to engage in those tasks independently. So providing video modeling, social stories, checklists, things like that. But the types of resources you provide for students can vary between each individual student, but also the content creation platform with the Belfast Met specifically has been used in a way that we never envisaged. So they have taken the OCN workbooks that were very much paper-based and created digital versions of them. So now they, especially during the remote learning period, they were able to create digital versions of the work that the students needed to do and see in real time their results and provide feedback. So that in itself is like a new kind of opportunity for us to work with awarding bodies to make their content digital, because all of the FE colleges across the UK would use those same awarding bodies. So we're also in discussions with them as well to take that further.
Right, great stuff, Debbie. Always brilliant to have Debbie pitching. And also at the heart of what she's doing is the core mission to give accessibility to more people in terms of education. Next up, we have Sprout. And it's great to have them pitching for the first time in something that I've looked after as well. So Sprout is next.
Next up, we have Kenny Galloway, founder of Sprout. And Sprout is a careers education platform designed to inspire today's students so that they can create a successful future. Over to you, Kenny.
Perfect, thank you. So jumping straight in, Sprout is a careers education platform, student-centered careers education platform powered by people and driven by technology. The aim is to help give young people control of their futures. These are some of the key USPs in which I attempt to develop. This is a prototype at this stage. That is a small image. This is to dive into a little bit more, from a dashboard to your details, which shows all the data, right through to an engagement tool, which is a rewards and loyalty scheme program that will help engage students to use the solution. Why have I decided to create this? Over the last 4 years, I've been investigating careers education because I myself had a poor experience. And 2 key points: work experience is not accessible enough. We need to improve that. Student engagement is very, very poor. The government has strategies in place that do not work, and they pay for money for solutions that simply are not engaging enough. So I am aiming to improve that. To validate that, a study of 8,000 students, 39% of them got work experience. The other 61% didn't. That is a shocking statistic. £90 billion is the cost on average to the government for wrong career choices. These have been taken from studies, and I can share links to that for you as well. How we're going to improve that? So through careers education, we're going to provide a centralized solution. We're going to create a work experience management tool. We're going to focus on the student. We're not going to focus on results. We're going to focus on what the student wants so they can lead a happy life. We're then going to reward and incentivize their engagement on the platform. And we're going to do that there through automation as well to help teachers actually be more effective with their time, which they're not at the moment due to no fault of their own. This is a bit of an insight into the platform. These are the different users and data points. I need to build a team around me. I need to get the right people on board to share my vision to build a revolutionary, world-changing program or world-changing software solution. This is why I'm here today. There's 4 target markets that I see that we could utilize and approach. The economic potential for this with the solution that I'm trying to build has talent management, has big data, has loyalty and rewards platform built into it, but ultimately it's a SaaS model. This is why it's scalable. During the pandemic, this growth increased phenomenally, but it was already increasing. So we need to attack this. Now is actually the time to do this. 4 years ago wasn't, but now is the right time to do this, and I need help to do that now. I'm a sales and marketer by trade. I will be leading from the front. What I need is someone to help build this for me so that I can sell something. That's essentially why I'm here as well. This is the roadmap to getting this on the right track. Hopefully with assistance, I will be able to get this going. I have approval from an education establishment. I have endorsements from one of the 4 founders of EdTech in Northern Ireland. And I also have endorsements from an entrepreneur who sees the value in what I'm doing. This is where it was in 2017. This is where I've got it to now. It is still a concept, and I do need assistance to get this going. That's me for today. If you have any questions, I'd like to open the floor.
Well done, Kenny. Thank you very much. Over to our judges.
I have a question.
Kenny, can you just cancel the slide share?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
Okay.
Hi, Kenny. Thank you. Quick question from me. So I've been involved with National Careers Week for a number of years. Haven't been for a while, but I'm also involved in careers in where I live in Greater Manchester.
Yep.
And one of the things in the UK, I'm pretty sure it's going to be very similar in Belfast as well, is the Gatsby benchmarks.
Yep.
If you are pitching this to educators, that's something that you need to think about, because what they need to be able to measure, and it sounds and looks like it would be great, and actually, you know, when it's built, I'd love to recommend it to people that I know, because there is a need for it, but you need to be able to measure the Gatsby benchmarks with that solution, and that's something that you need to be including 100%. In your early communications around that.
100%, totally agree with you. There is local government strategies that I've researched in great detail. Gatsby is mentioned, but the key local government strategies highlight digital being one of the key elements. So having digital solutions, and also solutions that can access in deprived areas. And that's essentially what this will be.
Yeah, but go back to the Gatsby benchmarks, because the Department of Education, that is, with regards to careers, that's the #1 thing that they're bothered about, and the schools get measured on that as well.
100%. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Beth, over to you.
Hi, Kenny. So you're clearly really passionate about careers. I was just wondering, is this sort of post GCSE level, A level, sort of what area in the sort of career timeline are you thinking would be the sort of target market for this?
No, listen, this needs to be in from a young age. It needs to be essentially from first year here in Northern Ireland, and you know, as soon as they go into secondary education. The problem and the challenge is students go into career or work experience at a very late stage after they've chosen their GCSEs. How on earth are we expected to grow up without any experience on a career path when we don't know what that career entails? So this has been taken. My younger brother is 16 years old. I've been coaching him for the last 3 years. Fortunately for him, he's had me to guide him, but his friends have not had that experience, and they still don't know. They're about to leave school and they still don't know what they want to do. This has been post-COVID or pre-COVID, this has been a concurrent problem.
Thank you.
Mary?
Thanks, Colin. Hi, Kenny. You flashed up very briefly there 4 different types of buyers for your product.
Yep.
So I'm going to just choose one of them. I'm going to choose local government, because it's a space that I know really well, because I've sold into 450 local authorities.
Hello.
What's your strategy for selling your product to a local authority at a price of £50,000, which I think was what was up there?
Yeah, so listen, there are estimates at this stage. You know, the pricing model is still to be discussed. But my experience, Mary, I have sold in the education sector.
So is it education authorities that are actually your target market, not local authorities?
Yes, so it depends on where you are in the world.
But let's just do the UK, or let's do England and Wales, because that's the biggest part.
Yep. So local government is the initial target market, but when we look at academies in the UK, you have to be able to sell the academies because they've got their own budget as well.
Okay, so they're 2 completely different markets that you just mentioned that are not in any way related.
So yeah, so in terms of the market, the key market that I would want to attack because it's the most profitable, will be local government.
Okay, so tell me what your strategy is for entering the local government market as a startup.
Yeah, so to get into local government, the key element there is to build something that attracts that is akin to their strategies. So I've mentioned a few of them already: digital first, deprived areas, socioeconomic. So it's to build around that. I also have local connections within those spaces who can help develop those relationships further with local government. I'm aware of local initiatives as well, where local government is also funding programs like this and then implementing those programs into schools through their channels. So local government is one, but really I know from my experience, there needs to be a 2 or 3 pronged approach to this, to actually get it in front of everybody, because when it's in front of everybody, they have no other choice but to take it. That is my strategy, essentially. That's why I put 4 key stakeholders in there.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Kenny.
Well, there we go. Last but not least, we have List Pals, who's going to be pitching next. Just want to do one final shout out to all the judges that have been part of the process. Asking great questions as well, I have to say. And questions, if you can't answer, then you need to work out how you're going to answer next time. And that's the whole point to pitching. It just helps you to formalize what your business is. So when you get in front of obviously business meetings, you have those answers in place. Great startups as well, really great Northern Irish startups from an early stage answering those questions. So thank you both startups and judges for being part of the process. Finally, but not least, we have List Pals, and good luck.
So next up, we have John McGee, the co-founder of List Pals. So List Pals is the simplest way to share medical and funeral wishes. John, over to you to let us know all about List Pals.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't talk about our death. This means little planning and stressful decisions for loved ones, with higher funeral costs, followed by regret at the choices that they often make in a hurry. Our paperless app-based world makes asset finding extremely difficult. The UK government's Dormant Asset Scheme has already collected over £600 million from families. It's changing. It will soon include insurance and share accounts, bringing the estimated value families will be losing in excess of £2 billion. List Pals is the free app for Android and Apple devices that solves these problems quickly and easily. It comes at a time in which COVID has brought illness and mortality to the forefront of people's minds, including young adults. List Pals helps those that value individuality and actions that do not harm the planet. List Pals are positive people who actively help others. The List Pals created Positive People Facebook group has grown to 500 members within a 3-month period. The app itself is supported by the largest association of independent funeral directors in the UK. Women aged 45 to 54 represent the most interested and engaged group, as they are disproportionately affected by the sudden death of a partner. List Pals care, and they see the bigger picture. They are involved in groups and campaigns that take positive steps to help others and the environment. The market for List Pals is significant. Discounting markets in which English is not the principal language, the estimated SOM for List Pals is still in excess of 100 million users. Will writing is increasingly unpopular, and the majority of adults in the UK will never make one. Wills do not help with funeral planning or tracking assets. Funeral plans are incredibly inflexible and targeted to people over 50. Funeral directors who offer planning services are limited to what they can or will offer. And desktop-based businesses offer a very limited service as a free option. But being desktop-based, they're not as convenient to update or access. Many seem to cross into areas that would be customary to include in a will and therefore create legal complexity. ListPals has a simple list format that everyone is familiar with. It only captures wishes, making it incredibly straightforward. A person can be a ListPal in under 60 seconds, and the alphanumeric data that the app captures creates an extremely low-cost base. The source of revenue is through advertising. It is, however, envisaged that users will be offered the ability to pay for the app if they wish to have an ad-free service. It is also an option that further features requested by some users may be made available on a subscription basis. Several developments are currently underway to build user traction. We will create a simple walkthrough for new users, which will have them sharing funeral information in under 60 seconds. We will add prompts for users to share the app and rate it. We will have latest news and notifications so users can make more informed choices and be more regularly engaged with the app. And partnerships will be extended to include organizations that reflect the ListPals target groups. Finally, a YouTube channel will also be developed in order to distribute visually appealing content and reach a younger audience. Thank you.
Perfect timing, John. Well done. So if you want to kind of cancel out your screen share, and we can open the floor to our judges.
Very good. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions now from our judges? Who wants to go first?
No one wants to talk about death.
Audrey does. Audrey wants to come in to talk about death.
Okay. Hi, John.
Hello.
How much engagement do you expect a user to interact with the app in order to get advertisers interested in advertising on it?
That is something that we didn't anticipate or think through fully, because when users have entered their information into the app, at the moment it's kind of that's me finished. I don't need to look at it every day or even every month. And that's why we're actively working on a news feed to provide up-to-date, relevant information on the latest developments within funerals. Because one of the great growth areas at the moment is around eco-funerals. And there's always positive, interesting news about how that's developing. And we see the news feed as being an opportunity to have people become much more engaged with the app on an almost daily basis.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Hello, John. Thank you for
Hello,
your
Mary.
presentation.
Thank you.
You mentioned that the app is supported by the Association of Funeral Directors. What does that actually mean? Do they pay you to develop it? Do they own it? What's the arrangement with them?
No, the association is called SAIF, S-A-I-F, and they're the UK's largest. They're responsible for over 1,500 funeral homes. Now, the press has covered recently the ever-increasing cost of funerals, and this has largely been due to two huge conglomerates that run a lot of the funeral services. And the independent group of funeral directors are actually very strongly advocating that people shop around and that people think about their funeral and that they compare prices, because they know that at the moment, people wait until the worst happens and then they just go to probably the local company with the biggest marketing budget, which is one of the two conglomerates. So they are very supportive of the app and exactly what the app is trying to do.
So do you have any commercial arrangements with them? Is there any?
No.
So when you say support, what does that mean?
On their website, if you go to the SAIF website, you'll see where they refer to the ListPals app, and they're promoting the ListPals app on their website.
Okay, and I've got one other really quick question. Why do you call it ListPals?
Because unfortunately, I suppose when we talk about funerals and mortality, it's the instant reaction is it's a depressing subject, and we wanted to create a lighter air to the subject matter. That in actual fact, what we're doing is a very positive thing, and that by thinking about your own funeral arrangements, there's all sorts of psychological studies as well. It's actually counterintuitive. That actually makes you feel much more positive and focused on life when you sort of come to terms with your own mortality. It will come to us all. But it's one of those areas that because we don't like to talk about it with people, it prevents us from planning for it.
That's time,
Okay,
guys.
thank you.
Perfect. That was their time up. Well,
Rock and roll. That is the last of the 12 NI startups that are pitching during Level Up, which I should note, if you look onto the left-hand side of my screen, is Derry Strabane Enterprise Week. And that's what we've been doing for the last 2 days, is focusing on core subjects and themes that are going to be really prevalent in society post-pandemic, whether that is health and well-being, whether that's social purpose, whether that's the economy. How can we make change? And all of those startups are at an early stage. And if anyone was here for the first session, we had a gentleman called Ben Scott Robinson. He was from a startup that was pitching in Northern Ireland 4 years ago, flew over from, I think it was Bristol, or somewhere down south anyway. Forgive me, that sounds like a wide area, but somewhere down south or Somerset, etc. And pitched in Belfast. 4.5, 5 years later, he's about £5 million raised for his business. They're changing the way that farming is done across the world. And I just think, obviously, we need to encourage those really early stage startups in Northern Ireland to have that stepping stone. And that's what pitching can do. It can help you on that process. This session was around social purpose. I must apologize. Obviously, it's possibly my fault with timings, but Davika isn't unable to jump on now in terms of obviously talking about what she's doing. All I can tell you is our most recent project is something called I Am Arla. And I Am Arla is there to support women, women who have specifically had to face and been through domestic abuse or sexual abuse. And one of the core themes that unfortunately has come out of the pandemic has been the rise in domestic abuse. So I would definitely ask you to check out Davika Woods and I Am Arla, and to see if it's something that you can look at and perhaps get behind and support. Davika, apologies that you can't be with us. Congratulations again to the startups. Thank you to the panelists in that great social purpose panel. I think the core thing that stood out for me is the fact that within the spectrum of social impact, there is charities, there is the social impact and the enterprise business, but there is the limited company as well. And I think we need to encourage more young people to think that social impact doesn't mean not-for-profit. So remember that, take that back with you. And obviously, I'd love to see some more tech for good companies coming forward and pitching next time that we run this. In terms of the next step, we're going to play a couple of songs now. It's not just all about talk. It's all about supporting artists, the hospitality sector, and also the bands that have been affected by not being able to play over the last 12 months. So we've got a couple of songs, and then we're going to come back at 2 o'clock for the last session, which is focused on diversity and inclusion. Why does that matter? And why do we need less talking and more action? We'll see you at 2, but listen in for a couple of songs now. Thank you.
I've been down, I've been broken, so many words unspoken. Felt alone, but I am strong. Something tells me that I belong, so I will take now. All I need to know, I will run. I've got to let me go. Find a peace and find a calm. Willing to lose, be willing to stand. Oh, time is something I won't take for sure. 'Cause in my dreams of summers past, will I find my peace at last? This road ahead is wide and open. The fire inside has been woken. I'm thinking forward, not looking back. Feels like I'm moving on the right track. So I will take now. All I need to got to let me go. Find a peace and find a calm. Willing to lose, be willing to stand. Oh, tell me something I won't take for sure. 'Cause in my dreams of summers past, will I find my peace? Had I not seen this before? Moving on, going back no more. Now's my time, my chance, my life. Find a peace and find a calm. Willing to lose, be willing to stand. Oh, tell me something I won't take for sure. 'Cause in my dreams of summer's past, will I find my peace at last? Peace at last. Peace at last. My peace at last.
Roving eye at the party scene, over familiar though not what it seems. He touched your hair, your skin snow white. Trip home on the tears that are sown tonight. Dancing alone in the shadow supreme. Invisible man with impossible dream. With the who's, the what's, the where's and the why. I built a monster right up to the sky. With green eyes, late at night, I hear her calling, and I try to get us over the line. If it's true love, what you say, love, my mind's been overdrive, and I apologize. Won't kick up a fuss, for it ain't my style. Crawl up in my soul like a wounded child, wearing out a trust so thin. The wit is out when the drink is in. That's a sin. Late at night, I hear her calling, get us over the line. If it's true love, what you say, love, my mind's been overdrive, and I apologize. If you're staying, or am I praying for some kind of miracle from the gods that I defy?